Best ball season is approaching. The NFL season is less than 2 weeks away. We have limited time to draft our teams, and we've probably drafted a ton of the same teams over and over and over. So what better time to bring on a hot take, another galaxy-brained friend of mine, CJ Kaltenbach, a.k.a. the Siege, who was dropping the Drew Lock nuggets that I'm definitely going to question him on here, as thousands of people on Twitter have. But I'm excited to draft another $1 million winning team today on Underdog Fantasy. Siege, thank you for joining me. Thank you for setting this up so perfectly with the Broncos situation. It's the perfect lead into a Siege hot take show. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, hot take gone wrong, huh?
You're right. What is really funny, I will say, the logic behind that. I mean, I couldn't possibly agree more with like what your logic was on this. It doesn't make any sense to me why they would, pass on Justin Fields and then start Teddy. I don't think that makes any sense. But unfortunately, NFL teams rarely seem to do the thing that like 99.9% of the world thinks is logical.
My only regret is that Teddy Bridgewater, after the second preseason game, was plus 400, and it was going up like every 5 minutes. The line was to get the first snap. And I looked at myself and went, God, you were so all in on this Drew Lock thing. Maybe it's a nice time to throw a hedge in. And then, it went up to like 425, 450. And I was like, no, clearly someone's out there. Someone's got this. No.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a pretty good point. And it's the perfect example of overreact. I'm not saying you were overreacting, but the market overreacting to a handful of snaps in a preseason game, right? If KJ Hamler doesn't break wide open and Drew Lock makes one good throw there, how much does it? Because Teddy played well, well for Teddy in the first preseason game, but we were enamored. The market was enamored with what Drew Lock was doing. And it's how many of those, that's just one example of how many of these situations have we seen in the preseason where everybody is kind of freaking out.
Yeah. I mean, I could just go right back and be like, well, you're just enamored with a few snaps of Teddy in the preseason, right?
It's true.
You never know. You just have no idea what you're walking into. So I have to be honest, I think it's actually been good for me because it's now allowed me to just reset my opinion of the Denver Broncos, and I think my love of Drew Lock actually might have had me walking into a major trap in terms of this offense. So this might be a blessing in disguise for me.
Yeah, that's interesting because, I'm kind of similar to you, right? I mean, it's easy to see. Look at all the weapons that a team like the Broncos have, and they're all fairly affordable in drafts, which I'm sure we'll get into in a little bit. But now it's a very different dynamic, not even just from Teddy being in there, right? Not even just the difference between Lock and Teddy in terms of the upside of the offense, but also like you've kind of made the point. Think about now how the coaches are viewing this situation, right? They're handicapping themselves, and they have a defensive head coach that is playing for his job and wanting a guy to not make mistakes. And that's what Teddy is going to do, which then in turn hurts the ceiling of this offense that I think has a ton of ceiling.
And it's not like Teddy is this, he's got a lot of interceptions on his record. Yep. It's not exactly like he's this, last year he had a 15-11 touchdown to interception ratio in Joe Brady's offense. And now he's going to Pat Shurmur, and we're expecting, there's a disconnect now between what Teddy Bridgewater has done his entire career outside of a 4-game sample in New Orleans and where we're drafting all these Denver guys. And, interceptions are not bad for fantasy. They're really not. It generates, you fall behind, and then you have to throw more. We saw this with Jameis Winston, right? He threw 30 interceptions and still finished as a top 10 quarterback that season because he had to keep throwing because he got them behind. So, I definitely have done a kind of I don't want to use a religious term, but like a come to Jesus moment on this Denver offense being like, okay, like, I don't think they're anything what I thought they were going to be. So, yeah, I'm really intrigued. I haven't done a Best Ball Mania since kind of the Denver. I kind of took 24 hours to get a root canal, which was a perfect day for that. Just put all the bad things in one day, just get them all done.
Yeah.
And then, I was like, all right, I'm just going to kind of reset and kind of see where they actually start falling. So this will be interesting.
Yeah. So before we hop into a draft, I'm going to piggyback off of that. Is there any other situations similar to this where like maybe your opinions have changed, not even just necessarily in the last, few days, but over the course of the preseason or whatever, where you really, maybe had a team you were bullish on or the opposite, a team you were bearish on that you've kind of flip-flopped?
Yeah. So I've done the roller coaster with Carson Wentz and Indy thing. I was as a Notre Dame guy, I was the high man on Michael Pittman. Like I actually was having a look at my rankings last night, and I asked myself, like, am I sure that Michael Pittman isn't better than Cortland Sutton? To kind of just like take a dichotomy of like two players, one that's moving down and one that's moving up. So I've done the yo-yo with the Colts for sure. I think the team that I've kind of just become a little bit more higher on is Miami. I was always a little bit high on them, but every time I look at Tua practice videos, and I know it's a small sample, but he wasn't supposed to play last year. And I am just getting all the vibes of Jared Goff rookie season under a bad coaching staff to then the year 2 when Sean McVay came in, and it was like night and day. Like, if you can't rotate your hip and throw a football, you're probably not going to be good. So I kind of just want to like pretend last year never happened with Miami and draft them as if, it was like a redshirt season.
Yeah, Miami is definitely one of the teams I'm like probably have the highest exposure to, obviously the 49ers and a couple other teams I'm very high on, the Cowboys, like everybody, but those aren't really big shockers. But the Dolphins thing, I couldn't agree more. Like, how is Tua supposed to be successful? First of all, getting in, in a pandemic season with no preseason, coming off a major injury, the team didn't even want to start him, right? His coaches didn't even want to start him, and he was like, Devontae Parker is fine, Mike Gesicki is fine. I guess Myles Gaskin is fine, but the offensive line was terrible, and he was throwing to, they were bringing in like scrub wide receivers to try to throw to, right? Even Preston Williams got hurt. Like they just didn't have anybody. Now you take what used to be the confirmed, Burrow kind of had this breakout season that made him the number 1 overall pick in that draft. But Tua, it was tank for Tua, right? Like he was like the next big superstar number 1 overall pick quarterback. Now, he has the injury, and I get it. Now, like an offseason to improve, an offseason to get healthy, an offseason to kind of cater the offense towards him. And I mean, Will Fuller is one of the most impactful wide receivers in the NFL. Say whatever anybody wants to about like exactly how good he is relative to the stars, but like pure impact. We see what he does for an offense. And they added Jalen Waddle, and they added, you bring back Albert Wilson, right? These things matter. And you compound these different positive factors. So I couldn't agree more. I'm super, super bullish on Tua.
And even not fantasy relevant guys, like they have Hunter Long as a blocking tight end, and I'm forgetting the other guy, but they've got like some of the best blocking tight ends in the league. They can do all sorts of different stuff. They can go jumbo if they want to sometimes. So there's just a very creative situation down there. But Tua is the best way to capitalize on all of it. So he's a guy that I've really been emphasizing of late.
What do you think about, and we'll hop in just a second, with a situation like the Dolphins where they kind of have all these weapons, right? And they're kind of all priced, they're really not that differently priced, even from like Waddle, Fuller, Parker, Gesicki, whatever. Are you kind of just like spreading out amongst those guys? Or are you taking more of a stand on a Fuller or a Waddle, or not even just the Dolphins, but we have some of those other situations, like even like the Panthers, right? They have 3 wide receivers that they all look attractive. How are you kind of handling that Dolphins exposure type?
Yeah, so the Dolphins is the one that I'm taking the biggest stand on, and I'm out on Waddle and I'm in on Parker. I just don't think Waddle's going to hold up over 17 games. He really didn't even in Alabama, and I'm not sure the Dolphins need him to. Like, they've got so many weapons. I think he could have a little bit more of a limited, snap count than we think. So he's the guy I'm out on, and Parker's the guy I'm rising as a result. But some of these other situations, like Cincinnati, for example, like I'm just spreading around. I'm not gonna. If I'm high on the quarterback, I'm just gonna go ahead and just be overweight on all the other guys. Because let's be honest, we're not that good at identifying players, right?
Right.
Who the hell knows? Like, guy could twist his ankle in week 1, and he's out 6 weeks, and suddenly the other two guys look better. Like, there's a lot of variance inside of an NFL season, so I'm not gonna act like a know-it-all.
Right. Totally agree.
Oh, God. I just looked at my ownerships. Yeesh. I got to really cut down on my Courtland Sutton. That is a painful number. Oh, boy.
Oh, over on Courtland Sutton. Were you more on? So
he was my number 2 highest owned wide receiver. I did not realize it was that bad until I just looked.
Were you taking him most? He fell a lot, and he still is falling. I think he's probably going to keep falling because there's such a negative sentiment with his fit with Teddy, right? Which I think is a little bit like
Teddy's not playing 17 games, guys.
See, so here comes the hot take. Do you think Teddy is going to play bad, and they're just going to need to go to somebody else, or like how are you viewing that over the course of the season?
I mean, first of all, Teddy's not model health guy, right? Let's just start there. He's never been a model health guy, so we start with that. Like it's a 17 game season. I have to imagine he's not going to, with the way he's going to be mobile in the pocket and whatever, he's just not going to make it 17 games. So I think that's a few games for lock right there. And, depending on when it happens, right, and how it goes, we've seen situations in the past, like Tyrod Taylor was the guy, and then just his lung gets injected, and next thing you know, he doesn't ever see the field again. So, I don't want to get super panicked about the situation because Teddy Bridgewater, I think, is just kind of like a journeyman. He got traded for a conditional 7th round pick. So it's not like the NFL had this high value on him. But, when I'm staring at 26% Courtland Sutton exposure right now, it's going to be a tough battle between, do I just take the L here, or do I buy the dip and hope I kind of get a favorable outcome?
Yeah, I don't know. That's such an interesting one because I have certain guys that I got overexposed to over the course. I would actually say the really, really random one that I got overexposed to was Mo Alley Cox.
Yes, you did.
Way overexposed to Mo Alley Cox. So I have a general approach, and this was early in the draft season. It has changed a little bit now, and Sutton's probably a good example of, as we get closer to the season, right, we know more. There has been all this time. There's less time for the market to shift. Now, maybe I'm wrong about that because the market is shifting like absolutely batshit insane every single day right now. But over, when I'm drafting in late April, early May, I'm not just trying to draft my guys, right? The reason why I got so heavy on Trey Lance, obviously I'm bullish on Trey Lance, but I haven't been taking him very much now because I have all this 13th, 14th round Trey Lance before the market adjusted. You can identify guys that you think are just going to rise. And so, but sometimes that doesn't happen, right? Mo Alley Cox went from an 18th round pick to, not being drafted because of the Carson Wentz thing. And it's like, well, do I keep buying now? Do I continue to buy the dip? Because I was wrong about that. So that's, I guess, where are you leaning on somebody like Sutton? Are you going to kind of now make this a bigger stand or back it off a little bit?
I don't know. I really just don't know. It's really tough because Sutton's a really good best ball player in theory, right? He's the deep guy, and he's still going to be the deep guy. And it's not like he can't do the other stuff. So he kind of has Will Fuller type tendencies just in general. So it's not like his ADP is getting now too far away from Will Fuller. So it's not a complete disaster. So, yeah, it really just kind of probably depends on how far he goes and how deep do I want to dig the hole.
Yeah, I do think this is interesting. I'm never gonna say that a bear case for any wide receiver is DJ Moore because that's a pretty freaking high floor to have for anybody in a situation that is uncertain. But it's a fairly interesting comp at least, right? DJ Moore was kind of in this role. All right.
Let me ask you a quick question because you did this with Pete on Wednesday or Tuesday, Monday, and you guys took the one guy who actually was in the late second. Right, in Adams. I didn't understand the strategy. I think we should take Kelsey here and try to build a build that people haven't seen.
Yes, I totally support that. So that I agree with. And there's definitely a super mega gal brain thought to the Adams thing, in the top few picks in Best Ball Mania 2. Because like you said, for people that maybe, I assume everybody here probably understands that, but in case you don't, Best Ball Mania 2 has been going on all summer. When the Rodgers stuff was kind of uncertain, Devontae was a second round pick, and even at the in the worst time, he fell to the late second. Like I think I have like a 212 or like I have a one CMC Devontae team, which is just kind of crazy to think about. So taking him at this new peak cost is I think a little bit suboptimal. However, I also think if you really want to gal brain this idea, there are unique combinations of players at the top that are really not all that different, particularly combinations of 3 wide receivers. Because markets have shifted, like say market has shifted on CeeDee Lamb or whatever. And I don't think that anybody in like those top 3 rounds are really, maybe top 2.5. I think there's probably a big tier break after like the middle of the 3rd round. But just kind of creating these unique starts of basically a 3v3, right, off of the Devontae teams. I think you're starting behind the 8 ball with I can't remember. We took Devontae, Keenan, CeeDee, I think, which I think is a fairly unique start. You're losing to those other Devontae teams right off the jump, but like no one has that combination of things. So if Devontae is still the guy you need, you're really just playing a 2v2 game thereafter. So I'm not with the early round guy like Devontae. I'm not going to completely throw it out of him in the early to mid first round compared to Marquez Callaway, somebody like that was an 18th round pick, and now he's going in like the 9th freaking round.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I've been doing it with Tyreek Hill a bunch when I'm looking to get kind of just Galaxy Brain, and I'll take him 3rd to get those kind of combinations. I just was wondering why you guys went with Adams, and that's kind of the reason
I prefer Tyreek. I prefer Tyreek actually to your point, because you can still get the unique, kind of starts without giving up quite as much firepower.
Yeah, okay. I was just curious because I've been doing a bunch of Tyreek 3 just to kind of toy around with those cool builds. It's a little weird, though, when you do it with a Chief, because the way CEH is falling, it's always awkward because you're just like, God, I wish I might just one of these times just Galaxy Brain it with Diggs just so I could, like, when CEH falls, I don't, like, really just hate my life for the negative correlation. I haven't done it yet, but I'm really tempted. Or if I want to really super, super Galaxy Brain it, I might go Calvin Ridley, but we'll see. That might be, like, the last day of best balls after losing it.
I think Ridley is interesting, maybe like in the middle of the second or the middle of the first. Like I don't know that I want to go all the way up to the top of the first, but I haven't tried that yet either. So I don't want to say. I'm open to like way more ridiculous ideas than the normal person is. So I'm not writing anything off.
Yeah, it's just tough because CEH falls.
Right, and Diggs gives you the outs to still take CEH, in the middle of the 3rd or whatever. Or early 3rd. And then you can get Allen. And I mean, how many, let's say Diggs, I don't know who's a late 2nd round pick, whatever. Diggs, DK Metcalf, CEH with Josh Allen. Like there's probably, I don't know how many of those kind of teams that there really are.
Right. It's not like you're drafting scrubs, right? You're drafting really good football players. So ADP is just a construct that we have created. So, players move up and down within like half a round, no problem. So one of my favorites is like the Christian McCaffrey and taking one of those mid to late 3rd round wide receivers, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp. I'm not necessarily much Mike Evans because I'm not a Mike Evans guy, but shoving one of those guys up has been one of my favorite constructs of late when I draw a CMC slot.
Yep, I like that. What do you think about these guys here that were on the clock? AJ Brown, Justin Jefferson. AJ Brown is definitely my favorite, and I don't think there's going to be like a ton of AJ Brown Kelsey. Yeah,
I think that's the right play. I'm not on Justin Jefferson, so I'd much rather take Brown.
I'm not really on Justin Jefferson too. Like I've taken him because I'm not going to be stubborn on like a stud wide receiver, right? And have 0. But he's definitely like amongst all these guys, my lowest. He also falls into that pocket where like if you take Dalvin, I don't want Jefferson at the end of the 2nd round. And there's so many of those pairings, the Dalvin Jefferson thing, that like I'll just in that case just give me DK Metcalf or AJ Brown.
Yeah, or just give me CeeDee Lamb.
CeeDee,
Keenan. Yeah, I just looked. I have like 1% Justin Jefferson. So we are on island of no Justin Jefferson here.
Yes. Okay. So here's a good one. We got awesome options. Obviously, we took Kelsey, and so Kittle is off the board. But what's your thoughts? I also don't want to do CEH here, which is kind of like you said, the unfortunate part of boxing. Okay, well, so CD would definitely be my pick here, but I'm also open to Keenan or A-Rob or something if you have a preference.
Yeah, this really sucks. Is Mahomes off the board? Maybe this room will let us get him in the 4th.
I mean, typically these drafts are sharper. So,
that's what I'm saying. We might be able to try it.
Let's do CD and see if we can. And I also, CD, we're only talking about a couple picks here, but there was that stretch where he was going in the late second. Now we've got him back to a little bit more reasonable price. Like you had to take him over AJ Brown for a short stretch there, and now you can get him with AJ Brown and Kelsey, and it gives us options here. Dak falls sometimes, like you said, Mahomes falls sometimes, and we can kind of maybe scoop one of these falling elite quarterbacks, and then just hammer the other positions.
Yeah, see, this is exactly though why try to Galaxy brand with Kelsey kind of sucks, because someone is just going to pick up amazing CEH value here.
Yep.
And that's definitely the tough part. And there's definitely times I have just given into temptation and just done CEH Kelsey on the prayer that I can get Mahomes back. It's worked once. I got 5th round Mahomes once with CEH Kelsey, which was really nice. But
I forced him in like the late 4th once, just because I'm like, okay, if I have these guys, I can't take 0 Mahomes. I think I have like 2 Mahomes teams.
Yeah, I have all my Mahomes was like 5th round Mahomes when it was like peak wide receiver mania. And it's like, all right, well, Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback. I will take him in the 5th round.
Right. When you're deciding between Mahomes in the 4th and like, I don't know, Cooper Kupp or something, it's like, that's a very different conversation than Mahomes in the 5th versus like Odell. You know what I mean? Like we're talking about very, very different 2v2s.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like this lineup's unique too. Like Mahomes in the 5th round, I'm going to be going up against a ton of teams that draft him in the 3rd and 4th. So if he is the player you have to have, 5th round is exactly where I want him.
Yeah, Mahomes is such a specific use case that I don't think people like think about where they're getting him enough, because he's not really that good of a bet versus all those other elite quarterbacks. So I think you want him with Chiefs, right? Because if he really is the QB1, Kelsey, Tyreek, CEH, whatever, those guys are just going to be going absolutely nuclear. And so many teams took him in the 3rd or 4th. The advantage is having the best Mahomes team, not just having another one of the same Chief stacks that everybody has, right?
That's the also thing when you think about you look at your ownership exposures, right? It's about where you get them. So there's a few players that like I am underweight on, but I know I have the best versions of the teams because I'm just so low on them. When I get them, it is at like the basement of basement prices. So it's kind of like, oh, I have 5%. I'm trying to think of a good player. I'm scrolling through my list of a player that I'm just like absolutely down on. Let's see if I can find one. Like Jamar Chase. I get Jamar Chase. Like it's 6th round Jamar Chase, and it's like, okay, well, that's fine by me. Like if I get, I know he just got hurt, but like Travis Etienne was one of those guys too. Like I was at the very bottom of the Etienne world. So like when I got my 3%, it was pick 79, Travis Etienne. Like, okay, that means if he is the guy, I have the best versions of him. So it's not necessarily the end of the world.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, especially for certain types of players, right? Like you're just never going to get the cheapest CeeDee Lamb, right? Because he's just there's only so far CeeDee Lamb is ever going to fall. So you just mix him in when it makes sense, or if you like him like I do, you're pretty much hammering CeeDee. But like you said, Mahomes, there are drafts he's going to fall to the 5th. He's usually going in the 3rd or whatever. So don't take him there, but just mix him in when it makes sense. Chase, not on a site that shall not be named, given we're talking about underdog right now, is absolutely plummeting. I mean, absolutely plummeting, especially now. I don't know if you saw his girlfriend's Instagram post.
She also tweeted, so I don't want to get too far in the weeds on that, but that was also posted pre-draft and then deleted. So I'm not.
Was it? I hadn't seen that.
That's what I read. So I did a little bit of a deep dive in it, but I came away from I'll wait for someone legitimate to report on it before I start affecting my draft strategy. But I could be wrong.
So here's the other thing that has bugged me about Kelsey is you get locked out of
Kyle Pitts.
Falling Kyle Pitts here too, which really sucks.
Yeah, so there's times I've just said I've been stubborn and just being like, screw it. Like if Kyle Pitts is Megatron, I don't care.
Yeah, that's true. If he really is a wide receiver, that's true. Can we
Right.
take Julio here?
No.
We have AJ Brown. How many of these teams are going to have
Tannehill's on COVID? I guess we might get a discount on
exactly. I'm taking that.
Yeah, we should do that.
We got it. Kelsey with AJ, CD, and the Titans.
And we'll get the discount on Tannehill too. Which will be nice.
The old COVID discount.
The old COVID discount. Hey guys, if you guys weren't paying attention, he's on the COVID list.
Right. He didn't test positive though, right? Is that what I read? I'm not up to speed.
They said 5 to 10 days depending on things. So I'm not sure what those things are.
Yeah. This is frustrating though with Kyle Pitts.
If someone at the turn doesn't take him, I think we really should consider it.
So yeah, I guess that's the question: is how do you really feel about that? Like, do you think that he?
Thank you, CMC team.
I
had a feeling the CMC team would, but
and that's pretty sexy.
That's a really nice team.
CMC, Amari, McLaurin, Judy with Pitts.
He did the thing I love to do. He jumped up Cooper to the turn. Like, who has Cooper on the turn?
Yep,
it's fantastic. We are just in no man's land right now.
Yeah. What do you like here? I don't like these running backs.
I think as a general rule, you should always try to, if you don't know what to do, drop the Carolina wide receiver.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
yeah.
I think that's kind of what we should do. We could take Odell, but I mean, we have a week 13 issue, but I don't really ever care about bye week Twitter. So
and well, you'll recover week 13. Like,
yeah, it's not like week 7.
Yeah, exactly. You may not recover week 7, but you'll recover week 13.
Yeah, week 13 is like not an issue. There's not exactly a ton of value plays on my board that have the week 13 bye. So it's not one I'm freaking out about. Week 6 for me is a sneaky one that's just brutal.
6
especially a tight end.
Pitts is Falcons.
Saints.
Oh my God, I should know this. Falcons, Saints. Man, it's gonna bother me now. I know 7, but I don't know 6 off the top of my head. Falcons, 49ers, obviously. How did I forget that? And Jets, yeah. So those are all teams I'm definitely on. So
yeah, it's when you take Pitts and you try to pair with a late tight end, it's just like, oh, I can't use Troutman because he's week 6. Mm-hmm. Great, and then it's like, okay, great. Now I'm stuck with Austin Hooper again for the 100th time in a row.
Yeah. I hate getting into those decisions with those super, super gross tight ends, but that is partially like the perk of getting Pitts, Kelsey, Kittle, Waller, right? Is like, I mean, in theory, you don't ever need Austin Hooper. So
I also just think the way that we're drafting wide receivers more efficiently than ever, tight end production is going to matter more in the shootout because there's going to be less of inefficient wide receivers that are just popping off the board from, like, for example, there's going to be no Justin Jefferson this year. We've learned our lesson, right? We're drafting those type of players much better than we did last year. Mm-hmm. And so where's as a result, running backs are falling. So it's not like you're going to get super running back value. I mean, you're going to get solid value, but it's not like the player pool is pretty well defined at this point because everyone's searching for those value backs. So for me, the question is just, I think the biggest inefficiency right now is the tight end position due to what we've seen in the past at wide receiver. So I'm really making an emphasis on tight ends. I don't want to be stuck with Irv Smith as my number one. I'm really using more capital on tight ends than probably most drafters.
That's really interesting, and I hadn't thought about it that way, but I think that makes a ton of sense with how efficient, specifically on Underdog. I will preface it with that because some of the other sites are a little bit less efficient, but specifically with how efficient we are. I mean, like your point on Jefferson is so true, right? Last year where Jefferson was like going way, way, way late. This year, Terrace Marshall, who like we know is the fourth option in that offense. Like, and I love Terrace Marshall. Like I have drafted a lot of Terrace Marshall, but like because we have learned that lesson, like you said, Terrace Marshall is like a 10th round pick now this year, right? I mean, maybe he is Justin Jefferson, but you're not getting him in the 16th round like you got Justin Jefferson.
Right. And, there's other guys that are going to whiff too, who we think are going to be in similar roles. One of the Buffalo guys, for example, like I'm high on them, but I also know realistically I'm going to be looking in the middle of October going, okay, that's a 12% of lineups I sank by being aggressive on this offense. So the real question is probably who's the next Buffalo, right? a rising tide rises all boats. And so that's where I think the conversation about San Francisco, and that's why I was so high on Denver, was, if Drew Lock makes a 50% improvement, right, it's going to rise the boat of the entire offense.
Yeah.
Right. And so now that's why I'm kind of just like going the opposites now. It's like, all right, well, a tide going out sinks all boats. So
yeah.
I think there's a pretty clear cut pick for us here if it comes back to us. I don't really, for me, I think it's pretty clear, but I think it's pretty clearly Kenny Galladay, just given our build. There's other wide receivers we could take, but I am just way out on Pittsburgh. I'm not even sure I own any Pittsburgh. I'm sure I do, but I just think with where we're at, he's got the upside we need, and that's the pick I would take.
I'm totally down for this. I don't have a ton of Kenny Galladay, but he is, again, now he's he used to be in like the 5th round, right? He was in the Ayuk range. And now we're talking about him, like you said, in the Juju range and the Michael Gallup range. And it's like, I can say whatever I want, and everybody has the same take on the Giants, right? We think they're going to suck. Daniel Jones sucks. The offensive line sucks. Kenny Galladay hasn't, right? I can recite all the same things that everybody has been saying all year. He's hurt, blah, blah, blah. But we're still talking about, in theory, this really, really, really good wide receiver with pretty darn minimal, target competition. And so, I don't think we should be concerned with spike weeks for Kenny Galladay. Are we concerned that, like, is he like the perfect 6th, 7th round pick? Who knows? But I feel pretty confident that he's going to provide some very quality weeks, almost no matter what the Giants do on offense.
Right, exactly. It's the weird floor ceiling play. It's like, at worst, he's going to get me 4 to 5 spike weeks. And like, that's fine, because I'm going to be drafting a ton of wide receivers, right? Like, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to draft as many talented wide receivers as I can. So fantastic. And this room is doing the same thing. So as long as they keep leaving me one guy in my tier, like, I'm not really in the mood to stop. All right, you want to go to the wide receiver tab?
Yep.
Yes, yeah, this is kind of where it stops for me. This is where I would start considering the position we shall not name.
Yeah. So here's one thing I was going to ask you about. What do you think about Sermon? Because Mostert got dinged up and trying.
This might have been one of the highest risers on my board.
Sermon?
Yeah. Kind of with the same idea of thinking about, like, rising tides rises all boats. And, I just think that could be that guy who next year we're drafting in the 2nd round, right? He's got that upside. He's in the right offense for it. He's a guy too that whenever Lance takes over is going to be really good in those read options. He ran a lot of that at Oklahoma, and so that's going to be very natural to him. He knows the cuts, he knows the lanes, and that offensive line has just been better. So he's a guy that I didn't take much earlier that is absolutely going the other way right now.
I also think he makes a ton of sense in, more of this 0 RB type build where, we know that the 49ers are going to be efficient. And even if he is splitting time with Mostert or Gallman or whoever early on, he still can, he can get in the end zone. Like, well, of course he can. And he was playing some passing downs in preseason, which is really nice to see. But he can be usable in a committee. I mean, it's possible that there's 3 usable backs in this offense, especially once Trey Lance takes over. But if he breaks out and, like you said, is the guy we're taking in the 2nd round next year, when you pair that with all this wide receiver firepower and Travis Kelce, like, that's how you create that superstar squad, come playoff time in Best Ball Mania.
Right, exactly. And, you're trying to win $1 million. And I think that people forget about, too, is the min cash is just your money back. And the level above that is $30. Like, don't get me wrong, some money is better than no money. But this idea that we're playing, like, you play to make the playoffs is, like, even more hurt by the structure of the payouts. So for me, like, it's just thinking about, like, how do I advance? It's not even just like making the playoffs. It's about how do I get to that 2nd round? Right? Who are the type of guys that are going to get me to that 2nd round? And Sermon is definitely one of those guys. And they also have a fantastic matchup that week.
Yeah, I mean, the playoff schedule is just an absolute smash. And if you like to think about, like, the kind of guy, right, last year's Jonathan Taylor, right, the guy that is ascending over the course of the season. Like maybe he does a little bit for you early on in the year. He's not a total smash, but then you get to this cupcake schedule, right? JT was getting the Jags and the Texans and those kind of teams later in the season. Well, the 49ers are actually getting the Texans and some of these, just god awful teams later in the year. And he's the youthful back that, like, say whatever we want about Raheem Mostert. I know he's explosive. We don't really know exactly how that backfield is going to shake out. If I was going to bet on a guy to break out and take, Winky brings it up right here, literally today, I think, or yesterday, Mostert already, is dinged up in practice, and he hasn't even played in a preseason game. It's like, who do you think, is going to be taking over that backfield later in the season? I would like to put my chips on Trey Sermon.
Yeah, and when Wayne Gallman's the other option, I very much would rather have the other guy.
Right. Totally agree. So let's see what we got going on here. This is not that bad.
This tier is pretty dead for me.
But, like, at least we're not run out of, like,
no.
Sometimes that'll happen. These guys will be getting pushed way up in, like, a really wide receiver heavy room, but we didn't run into that situation. So what are you doing with the Jets wide receivers?
Davis is probably my favorite, but I also stare at Michael Thomas and go, like, Corey Davis, it's the Jets, right? And it's not exactly like they've got a good offense. I'm not sure I'm ready to pronounce it as good as most of Twitter wants to. And they've got a tough schedule too. It's no cupcake. To me, it's tough. Like, I think about winning $1 million, and every time I get in this situation, I think about Michael Thomas. And the reports have been good, and both sides just started quibbling in the media, and then it just went radio silent, which to me means they finally had all right, like, we're gonna do this one more year. Can we just, for the love of God, stop bickering at each other? But the last reports we had were good, so like I would take them over Cooks or Hardman, those type of guys. I mean, you can make a case if you wanted to jump Marvin Jones. I'd be willing to listen to that argument. I do like him, but that's kind of what I would do here.
I haven't. You're selling me a little bit. I've been pretty much out on Michael Thomas, but I do also think in Best Ball Mania 2, it's a little bit interesting because we know there's a fair amount of teams with him, in the third round. And yeah, right. I mean, I know I have a little bit of him in the third round. And so it's a little bit at least interesting there. And just as we're getting a little bit more certainty, we'll get to that too. But I was going to ask you about Jameis versus Taysom. I feel a lot more confident in Jameis now. I guess everybody probably does.
I feel burned by this whole stupid quarterback thing. So don't ask me at the
moment. Yeah. Maybe don't answer, because if we agree on it, then it's probably not going to come true.
Yeah, it's tough. It's been tough for sure.
Yeah, so Marvin comes back to us. Do you want to take Marvin here?
I like Marvin. He kind of reminds me more of the Colin Johnson build, who's also one of those late round guys when I don't get Marvin that I take. I saw you, I think you were pretty early on him, and I kind of just did the head nod as when I was watching the show, being like, yep, let's just move him 40 spots up the rankings, make sure we get a bunch. Yeah. Like, I'm just out on DJ Chark. I'm not sure how long he even starts. I don't think Urban likes him at all either. Like, if you had to put my life on one player inside the top 100, finishing outside the top 150, DJ Chark would be my man, and it wouldn't be close.
I think I've made my stance that it's DJ Chark and probably Brandon Cooks would be the two guys that I would bet on. Like, and not because I don't think Brandon Cooks might actually be fairly good to start the year, but when I'm envisioning the same, it's like the opposite of the Trey Sermon thing, right? When I'm envisioning the Texans and they're 0-9, right? And Brandon Cooks is this, small, older wide receiver. Like, what are they going to be doing? It's probably not going to be Tyrod back there.
That's not necessarily a good thing, though. Davis Mills loves his corner lob zone passes in the end zone. Loves them.
That is true. But I'm envisioning. I agree. Pecan. What a sweet name. I agree. I'm very much on Colin Johnson. The other thing, just pivoting back to Marvin super quickly, is we don't have a quarterback. We don't have we have some stacks where we're looking to set up, but he gives us the outs to Lawrence still.
Yeah, and exactly. And that's the nice part about taking a Carolina receiver is no matter what you do, you've got the back door to Sam Darnold, which The worst part about Drew Lock for me isn't necessarily that Drew Lock isn't the starter. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't like that at all for my Denver exposure, but it was really nice to have someone that I actually liked below him, where I could play chicken on Sam Darnold. Because I always had this problem where it gets to like pick 170, and I would just be like, I don't have a QB2, and everyone below here is trash. Like, and I would just jump them, just consistently just jump. And the nice part for that 10-day stretch where I was convinced Locke was going to be the starter is like I got to play chicken with Sam Darnold. I watched you do it on another site. I've done it on Underdog. I've gotten him in the 200s a couple times. It was really nice to be able to play chicken on him. So that's definitely something I miss, probably more than necessarily Drew Lock starting.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I tend to play chicken a little bit just in general because I'm okay missing on the stacks because like you know this, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but there are still benefits to having Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore, or Robbie Anderson and Terrace Marshall without Sam Darnold. Like if it's a totally ideal world, I would get my double stacks and get all my correlations and everything like that. But also when we look to what like the winning teams are going to be, they're probably not going to be the completely perfect, right? That's what happens in DFS all the time. If I could build my game stack with the exact perfect bringbacks and stuff like that, it's not always what wins. And so I actually think, pushing that is actually a big edge. But to your point with the Darnold thing, I didn't like anybody after him. So it wasn't so easy to just, you can push it with Dak and Russ and Herbert and all that because, you're never going to get locked out of quarterback. But when you had Darnold, it's like, I don't want to take Daniel Jones. I don't want to take, the Saints situation. It was kind of a mess.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit better now because we know, I think, that Mac Jones is probably going to start sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
Jameis is going to start most likely, knock on wood, right? So it's a little bit better of a situation than it was, but yeah, certainly issue. Oh, come on, we got to play chicken on the turn.
No, I'm not. This guy does not. I'm not. There's nobody here that we.
Why take Terrace Marshall? What do you mean?
Does he have?
He can set up the double.
Okay, you're right. You're right. I'm wrong. You're correct. I agree with you.
Let's get that clipped.
He's definitely gonna. Yeah.
Okay.
There goes Dennis.
So what?
Fine.
Yep. Whatever.
Now, but so we have. Let's see what quarterback looks like really quick. So there is, we can get Lawrence and then look to Darnold as a
Darnold, and we can double stack with Colin Johnson towards the end too.
Exactly. Yeah, we wanted Tannehill and Marshall, so suck it.
I mean, taking, and guess what? Like, I'm not really worried about a naked Ryan Tannehill team beating us because if Tannehill's going off, our guys are doing all the work. So It doesn't really bother me.
And that's the thing, to your point, about these situations is the other people just made their team worse, right? This, I mean, no offense to this gentleman here, but you made your team worse. We still have that bet. Yeah, I think we take Lawrence here.
I think we do as well.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so this works out well. And the other thing is, even when you miss on that quarterback, it actually, now we're going to have extra stacks, right? And I think that's something that people don't think. Like the quarterback points are whatever, sure, I would love if something breaks where Tannehill is just a total smash this year, I would love to have that. But more likely than not, as Tannehill does kind of what we think Tannehill is going to do. And then we get to the playoffs and you just need Lawrence to do, Lawrence, Darnold, whoever we end up getting, to do something similar to what the Tannehill is doing, but we still have the Titans bet. You know what I mean? And I actually like having, we have a Titan stack, even though there's not the quarterback. We have a Carolina stack. We have a Jaguar stack, right? And you just start to stack up these things. We have Cowboys, 49ers, and you just start, now I have 6 stacks on this team, right? That other people are just okay, they got their one double stack and that's it. There's power in that in the playoff weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got 8 wide receivers, I believe. Is that right?
Let me double check. Yep.
Beautiful.
1-1-8-1. This is nice.
That's exactly how I love to do it. Get those wide receivers early, baby.
And after Marshall, I think, is a fairly significant tier break. I guess I kind of like the Bills guys, but even then, I'm not super hyped about anybody kind of beyond Terrace Marshall. And now, if we don't want to take, we can do the Colin Johnson thing, of course. But even if we don't want to take Colin Johnson and we need to hammer running back, we have that flexibility now.
Yeah, and this is kind of I don't mind Rager, I don't mind Davis, I don't mind Sanders, but I'm not oh my God, my world. I don't want to be in the situation of sweating at the screen, being please fall, please fall. right? It's just everyone's been there where you try to play hero and you're just like, man, I can get him. And they go right before you and you're just like, well, now I'm stuck, drafting AJ Green or Traquan, and you're just like, oh man.
Yep.
Why did I Joe draft dead zone running back X?
Yep. It's so true. And all of these, like I like the Bills. I actually have maybe I'll be regretting the Cole Beasley thing, but I have like quite a bit of Cole Beasley. But like almost all these guys, I think someone could maybe debate Marvin just because he's a little older and we kind of know what he is, but he also plays well in this structure with the spikes. I mean, that's what Marvin provides, right? He's probably gonna have like 2-3 touchdown games and some duds, but that's okay when you have 8 stud wide receivers. But your point on Sermon is like, this is the guy that could go in the second round next year, right? Terrace Marshall could go way higher. Obviously, 9th round Michael Thomas could go way high, right? It's all, we're stacking up all these guys together that could all just be total smashes.
Right. And guess what? There could be a total dozen to finish last in the tournament, but it's the same thing if you finish dead last in the tournament or you finished, 4th in your league. So, I guess we do have to look at the position that shall not be named.
Probably time to start looking at some.
Yeah, right. Fair enough.
This quarterback is
I got to be honest. I think we should kind of just wait for Darnold at this point.
I think so too.
If someone jumps him, We'll come up with a plan B. We have Jameis backdoor.
We have Jameis Galladay.
Right. So we've got the backdoors if we need them.
Yeah.
So I think this is kind of a nice. To me, this is kind of the running back sweet spot where there's a bunch of guys that I really like.
Who is your favorite amongst these guys? Obviously not Latavius anymore.
No, I'm still not giving up hope there. I know that it feels like a lost cause. I am not giving up hope. Obviously, I've removed it from my board, but I have not given up hope on that. Hopefully, ideally Jacksonville for me, just because I have 0.25% James Robinson. I was so far out. I think the only share I actually found them like on an FFPC football guys. That like the very first one I did, and I did it drunk in a bar. So, all right. Hines, I think is fine. Madison, I think might get back to us just because of the injury concern.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's a couple other guys I like, but I know people at the Turner are listening, and I very much would like to get a couple of them.
Let's do Hines. I think Hines makes sense here. Obviously the
unique bye week too is very helpful in case like we emergency need him as a flex. I mean, I God hope we need him, but maybe week 13 we do. So a unique bye week there is kind of nice to have.
I also like getting Colts exposure, whether it's through Hines or somebody else, because I do like this offense. I know a lot of people are really down on the Colts, and I get it with Wentz and such, but they have a really sweet playoff schedule too, and so you could absolutely get one of those Nyheim Hines spikes in the playoffs. The 2 touchdown game.
So I'm okay with Madison, Damian, or McKissick. I'm the high man on McKissick. Probably compared to most. Damian, I just am not a Montgomery guy. I think he's going to get that passing down work. Madison, I think, has the highest ceiling of the bunch, but we do have a week 7. Or no, we don't have a week 7. So I'm kind of half a dozen with any of these guys.
I think with Sermon Hines, we want to shoot for the moon, which you could maybe argue that Damian is in that same that similar archetype, but I just don't know that and I guess Montgomery proved me wrong last year. But I just think if something were to happen to Dalvin and to Montgomery, that I would rather have Madison. How do you feel about that contingent value between those two guys?
I think I personally have drafted Damian more. Let me just make sure that's the truth. They're actually both lower than I would have ever expected, or I just missed them at the top. Where are they? I'll just have to use the search function. Madison is a guy I'm at right at the field with, and Damian I'm at the field with. So yeah, I guess I kind of just drafted them interchangeably. I'm actually surprised my Damian Williams is only 7%. I would have thought it was way higher than that, just based on how much I like the guy.
I loved him. Like he was, I made like Darrington my, brand.
Yeah, then you used to get him in the 18th round. It was nice. That's probably why I stopped.
But Damian was the same thing. Like I probably have like 10 straight teams where it was like 17th round Darrington, 18th round Damian or whatever. I was just smashing those guys so much. And so now it's tough to stomach like 14th, 15th round Damian on all sites. He's so much more expensive.
Yeah, I'm looking at now, like most of my ownership's back in like the original Puppy and Best Ball Mania, so that definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
It's so nice you can sort by that too, just so you can know when you were getting players compared to the field. It's very helpful.
Yeah, if only the other sites would step up and
do
something similar.
That'd be fantastic.
We got 150. Yeah, so we got time here on a quarterback, and like you said, we can play chicken because we got outs to Jameis and Daniel Jones. So feeling pretty good. This feels pretty good.
This is kind of how I like to do it. Obviously it would be nice if a running back we like falls to us, but that's kind of the name of the game, right? You have to play a bunch of these, and you're not always going to get the perfect draft. Some things are just not going to go your way. But when you do get the perfect draft, you want to be in a position to optimize it.
That's so true. That is so true. And I think people struggle with that mainly as it pertains to running back, right? Because like we talk, like Overzet talks about it a lot. We talked about it on ship chasing, like frequently, especially during like the crazy wide receiver bull run, right? It's a little bit back to, it's not normal, but like it's not quite as crazy as it was there during like what, Puppy 1, Puppy 2, something like that.
Puppy 2 was just absurd.
absolutely insane, right? You're taking, I mean, it was crazy. But anyway, you have to be able to, like you said, capitalize. And every round beyond like the fourth, it's always a running back that's the quote unquote best pick, right? Say whatever you want about, like from an ADP perspective, it's like always a running back. And so you need to know that. And like, when do you swerve over and get that guy? Like, when is the right time? You know what I mean? And so I think, when we're constructing a team like this is exactly how I want to build my team. Like you said, play a little bit of chicken at quarterback and just make the right swerves. And now we're just going to, just start scooping up the running backs. So I do think it's probably running back here. I really like Gio. Actually.
Yeah, I don't think this is a decision. I think it's Gio for sure.
I think so too.
Yeah. I still have these dreams of Fournette getting cut. I know they're probably dreams at this point, but
yeah,
I remember like last winter, he was on the verge of getting cut. And then like Ronald Jones got hurt. And so they kept him around. And then they won the Super Bowl, so they felt like they had to keep him around. I don't know.
Yep.
I just like there's always a surprise cut every year. There's always a surprise cut. And I don't know. Leonard Fournette. Maybe it's just because I've been a little bit high on the field on Ronald Jones and Gio, but God, that'd be fantastic for me.
Yeah, same. I was pretty in on the Gio stuff early, and I use Rojo.
What does the tight end market look like? Can we just take a quick peek?
Yeah, I've kind of like totally written it off.
Yeah, we're back in the dead zone. Okay, that's fine. I was making sure someone didn't fall on us.
But do you prefer like Hunter Henry or James White? The other thing about James White and Hunter Henry is they do set us up for Mac if we want to.
I think James White's the pick here for me personally.
I love it.
There's other options too. Like if there was a tight end that had fallen, like there are other sleeper running backs on the peak. Like I for example, in Poppy 3, if you were drafting with me yesterday morning, you noticed that I was taking a lot of last round JJ Taylor. The guys that I trust in college football like swear up and down that Stevenson is just bad, like up and down, swear. I mean, I don't want to out the guy because I don't know how much public he wants out of it, but like it's a guy and it's like he's just like Stevenson's terrible. The coach, like no one likes him. He's not good. Trust me, he's gonna like never play. And I was like, okay, good to know. I think we're gonna trade Michelle and he'll play. This was like a couple months ago, but okay. And they traded Michelle and he doubled down. And this guy is not a hot take guy. Like he's normally just like, we'll see. He's just like, Stevenson's bad. This is a JJ Taylor move. So I was like, all right, I guess I'll grab some last round JJ Taylor and the puppy. Why not? It's the puppy. Yeah. So I kind of don't think he's wrong necessarily too. Like I could see JJ Taylor taking the Rex Burkhead role. So that's probably how James White fails. But in this build, I just think James White for us makes a lot of sense.
And the interesting thing about JJ Taylor is that if that's correct, well, like you said, no one's drafting him. It's the 18th round. Who gives a shit? All those guys are the same, right? They're all probably going to suck. But if that's correct, he has a really unique contingent value case where it's actually usually it is, okay, starter gets hurt, right? Madison, right? Madison's the easy case. Tony Pollard, those guys are the easy case for like, okay, starter gets hurt. In theory, he's mostly a workhorse, right? Other guys might mix in a little bit. JJ Taylor is like, there's two guys in front of him in very specific roles, and he could benefit from either of them going down and then like actually be really really usable. He could even be Rex Burkhead, like you said, right? Maybe he pops even without an injury. It's just a really, really super unique case in the New England backfield, and he's an interesting.
And Stevenson doesn't play special teams. So like, let's say someone gets hurt and they're carrying 3 backs, and someone gets hurt. Like now, JJ Taylor's got a spike week potential for you.
Yep.
Right. And then they might activate him the next week, but you still have 2.5 quarters to get a spike week in the 18th round. Like, sign me up for that.
Yeah, and I think you're the Patriots fan, so you would know even better. I am fairly bullish on this offense. I think they're just a tough one to peg, which actually happens all the time with the Patriots. I know people make the jokes about the backfield and stuff, but like I find basically every piece of the Patriots appealing. And so I am actually trying to, like, if we're just like talking about exposure to a team, make sure I am like basically overweight on the Patriots. It's just I don't want to like have all my eggs in one basket, right? It could be Damian Harris, it could be James White, it could be JJ Taylor, it could be Hunter Henry, it could be Jonnu, right? I really like Jacoby Myers, but like, now we just went through 8 different guys on the offense, and I want to make sure I'm just, getting my Patriots exposure.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a bunch of different guys. Stevenson for me was like really early on. I loved him like early season, like April, May. He was my late round guy, and I think I tweeted about him, and I like 2 minutes later get a text like light those teams on fire, just immediate hate. I was like, okay. And then I thought about it though, like the Pats did redshirt Damian Harris as a 3rd round pick, right?
Yeah,
like they did the exact same thing with him. So this wouldn't be unprecedented for the Pats to just like redshirt him and play the other guys. So,
and Brandon Bolden is still around, right?
I guess.
Is he going to make the team?
I have no idea. I assumed he wasn't, but you're right. Like they could inactivate him and keep Bolden around. So that's right. That is possible.
Yeah. So I have no idea. Obviously, this is nice. Jameis goes.
Yeah.
Jameis
don't. I was really hoping you weren't going to click the tab. I was like, I almost don't.
This guy's got 3 quarterbacks, and these guys got 2. So
we should be okay, unless someone just wants to.
Right.
That's okay. If not, we get to take one of my favorite wide receivers, so it works for me.
Oh Lord, I'm terrified to know who that is. So that is, I guess, one thing. Do you feel comfortable with this group of 5 running backs to where you would? Okay, I'm taking Darnold.
Yeah, we're taking Darnold. That was a good bluff, but yeah, we're taking Darnold.
Yeah. But are you comfortable with this group of 5 running backs and another wide receiver flyer, or how are you normally approaching this as it gets to the last 2 rounds when you have these running backs?
It really just depends who's available, right? If there's a back that I think will make a difference, sure. If there's not a back that I think is a difference maker down here, no. So like, for example, like I could see a case if you wanted to tell me, hey, we should take a 6th back with Tony Jones, or take a 6th back with Justin Jackson. Like I would like those are cases I think that would be there. For me personally, though, I would not pass up on the value of Byron Pringle.
Oh, okay.
He is, I believe, my highest on wide receiver. I'll double check that, but I'm pretty sure he's my highest on wide receiver. I
can get behind this.
I don't necessarily think that Hardman has this number 2 role locked up. I think he's going to win the number 2 role, but I don't think it's a gimme that he A, wins it, or B, keeps it. So for me, Pringle has been one of my big targets. Like 18th round, he was a guy. He went up to 17th round, no problem. He's normally going 16th, 15th round. I'm really still not stopping. Yeah. So for me to get that kind of value here in round 17, I know we had the Colin Johnson double stack available to us, but I think Pringle's just a significantly better player in a better offense with a better role.
And, to your exact point kind of about will he, who will win those ancillary wide receiver, the different roles kind of on the Chiefs. When you have Kelsey, that actually kind of enhances that bet on the Chiefs. We talked about earlier, like being able to kind of secondary stack other teams. And it's not just for like, oh, when the playoffs get here, I want to have Chiefs. Of course. I mean, who wouldn't want to have Chiefs? But it's like throughout the season, I mean, we've seen Tyreek Hill pull the, run the deep route and grab the old hammy, and everybody's assuming that's Hardman, but that also benefits Pringle, and it definitely benefits Kelsey too, And so just having these different little correlated bets, I like to try to make those little bit of correlated bets outside of just that stack. You know, I mean, I like Colin Johnson. Obviously, I have drafted a lot of Colin Johnson, but there's not a lot of opportunities for, like you said, where Pringle goes now to be able to latch him onto a team like this.
Yeah. All right. So let's take a look at our tight ends.
Yep. Now it's tight end time.
Yep.
And okay, we got 10 picks. Have you ever taken Kelsey without taking another tight end? And do you ever consider it?
No, I have not considered it, just because there's normally a guy down here that I'm okay with.
So the only reason I bring that up
is a world where I would not.
Yeah, like if there's a running back here compared to a tight end that you actually like, I'm not saying that there is, but I'm saying like I do kind of like Ty Johnson. I do. You brought up Tony Jones. I think him and Justin Jackson can make some sense. You know, I think there are some backs here where it's at least interesting to consider standalone Kelsey.
It's definitely worth considering. The problem is that there's a guy that I just believe should be drafted like 6 rounds higher, and never is drafted. So
pretty sure I know who it is because you gave me shit maybe 2 months ago or something on a stream when I took Chris Herndon over him.
Probably. There's a couple guys down there that like I'm okay with. One of them is kind of like a guy over the last month and a half. Someone sent me, it's one of those things like I do a tweet and someone sends me a DM with like a really good question and it makes you think. And this was one where I got a DM being like, if you believe this, why aren't you doing this? And it was like, oh, I don't have a good reason. Thank you. You know, a lot of the times, like it's most of the times they're not good ideas, but this one in particular was just like a really good idea. And I was like, all right, we're going to put that one, we're going to change the rankings right now. And I've done it a few times and people have just been like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So, I mean, like, for example, I'm not the player I'm talking about, like Pat Fairmouth though. Like, I think he's worthy of like just, you know, Kelsey misses 2 weeks. I think he's got a big enough role. Like, for example, like I would not go 0 tight end with him on the board. Mm-hmm. You know, he goes now, but like that sort of situation for me, you know, like Donald Parham, not the guy, but again, similar situation, right? I think he's got enough upside where it's like taking an automatic 0 and leaving yourself susceptible to like 2 to 3 weeks of zeros. I think that player is consistently going to be involved enough where it's, you know, worth taking them. Mm-hmm. But, you know, there certainly are situations where, like, you know, there's only 2 or 3 guys that I would consider taking. So for me, Hayden Hurst here is a no-brainer.
Okay.
If I believe that Kyle Pitts is playing as much outside as he's going to this year, and I think he will play a ton outside, that means that Hayden Hurst still has his role from last year totally available to him, right? As the lead blocker, as the lead pass catcher from inside the line. And this is a team that, you know, outside of Calvin Ridley, like Russell Gage, okay, he's more of a slot guy. You know, Zacharias really has never done anything, right? Yeah. And so if they really do play Kyle Pitts a ton outside in the slot, right, and they play Gage more outside, or they play Kyle Pitts outside, you can play Kyle Pitts outside as well. That just leaves a ton of playing time available for Hurst, and we've seen the tight end's value in this offense and in, you know, Smith's offenses, right, from Tennessee. Like he loved the double tight end with Jonnu and Fursker. So why is Hayden Hurst going completely undrafted? Like, it's not like he's never going to see the field. Yeah. And if something was to happen to Pitts, oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I think he's not sexy to people because he's not, you know, he's not 6'8" XFL superstar Donald Parham, you know, he's not whatever, former first, I mean, OJ Howard didn't get drafted here, but, you know, he's not new guy, Freiermuth, he's not, you know, former first rounder OJ Howard, whatever, but he was a first round pick, wasn't he? Wasn't he in Hurst?
Yeah, he was a first round pick out of Oklahoma, I believe.
Yeah.
No, that was Mark Andrews.
Hurst is UNC. Where did Hayden Hurst go to school?
South Carolina.
This is really going to bother me now.
I think it's South Carolina.
I have to look it up.
Mark Andrews was Oklahoma. I think he was South Carolina. We'll find out.
You're correct. South Carolina. Right. I knew it was one of the Carolinas. I'll pretend like I was right.
Once you said North Carolina, it made me think, I was like, oh no, wait, he was South Carolina.
Yeah.
But they traded a second round pick for him.
Right, exactly. And like he was a bust last year. I was drafting him last year because I'm like, okay, you know, there's Julio and Ridley, and now there's this guy who they just traded real assets for. But it's like, we know, like you said, we know there's a role here for this guy. Like it's literally just a fact that like we know he has a role. Exactly how big, I don't know, because it all depends on what you said with Kyle Pitts. How much is he playing inline versus split out wide? I agree with you that I feel maybe too confident in how they're going to use Kyle Pitts as borderline a wide receiver. But to your point, that what does that mean? That means Hayden Hurst has like a real role, and we're drafting other guys that have probably more uncertainty, right? I like Donald Parham, but like he could not touch the field for all. He could literally never play for all that I know. And then you have all the compounding factors about the Falcons, right? Pass first offense, good offensive coordinator, horrible defense. So like, he has contingent value, right? If Kyle Pitts goes down, Hayden Hurst is playing every single snap, which, I'm not hoping for that, but these are real things.
Yeah. I mean, it's rare that you find an 18th round tight end that last year had 56 catches for 571 yards and 6 touchdowns.
Yeah, that is very true. And
that's not saying I'm projecting for that again this year. Yeah. Like, that's not terrible.
His role probably didn't change. His role probably didn't really even change from last year, right?
This is one of those times I'm very happy they're not playing Kyle Pitts in the preseason, because if he was playing out wide in these first 2 preseason games, this ADP would have flown up.
Yeah, that's really true. We got some other Hayden Hurst truthers in here. So you're supposed to be bringing like the hot takes that everybody disagrees with, and you're dropping these 18th round nuggets.
All right, well, I got one more 18th round nugget. I got one more. Right. Not a fit for a Travis Kelce team. And this is more on 20 round leagues, but I have done it on a couple of these 18 rounders. 11 of 12 first round picks, backups are drafted by round 11 or 12. The one who's backup who is never drafted is Travis Kelce's in Noah Gray, who is getting rave reviews in camp. So he is a late round flyer that I love to take. He's a guy, like, it's got to be the right context. It normally is Darren Waller, George Kittle, Pitts, those sorts of things, or ones where I have punted the position and I'm using 3, like I'm going 16, 17, 18. But God forbid something happens to Travis Kelce, and let's be honest, I'm way overexposed to Travis Kelce. At least I would very much like to be overexposed to the guy who's going to take, he's not going to be Travis Kelce, but like, where would Noah Gray go if Travis Kelce was out for 7 weeks right now? 13th round, 14th round? That's value, right? And again, not every single team can win the $1 million. So I'm trying to build a portfolio of teams that give me as much upside as possible. And having Noah Gray among that, I just think is required.
Right. Travis Kelce, I have same as you. I'm overexposed to Travis Kelce because I think he's one of the best picks, one of the right picks for how I want to build my teams. However, it's like in DFS, I can't, but let's use baseball as an example. I can really like X pitcher, right? The people, if anybody is from Add More Funds that is listening, they'll know Tyler Anderson was my guy, right? Now Pirates, former Rockies, former total gas can bum pitcher, right?
Seattle Mariner.
I was a believer and still am a believer in Tyler Anderson. But I can also at the same time believe that, right, he's facing whatever team, the Brewers, he can have upside, but if something goes wrong for him, the opposite side can have upside. Like, we do this for running backs. We even somewhat do this for wide receivers, but we're not doing it for the 32-year-old tight end who last year was like the league winner of all league winners.
And it's had back issues.
Yeah, exactly. So I got convinced. I had taken 0 Noah Gray, and maybe 2 weeks ago, every Tuesday, we do the draft reviews here where people post these people are all sharper than me. This is why I do this content, is because all these people come in and they give me the ideas and I just get to steal them. But somebody posted that exact thing. I think he did a 3-punt tight end. So it was like Cole Kmet, Parham, Noah Gray or something, something like that. And I was like, holy shit, that is brilliant. I'm like, you just flipped the tight end thing on its head with, and the right kind of guys, some breakout guys, and then the leverage on Travis Kelce. And I was like, I got to do this. So I that afternoon, I draft like two Noah Gray teams, but I think it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess it's not going to it's probably not going to work out. Hopefully Travis Kelce's healthy, but right. Also too, something we haven't discussed and a lot of people I obviously discussed anywhere is like the season's a week closer to the playoffs. What if the Chiefs are, 15-1 and have it all figured out? Yeah. Kelce's back's sore, and he's your third tight end just chilling there. You're advancing because you've made a couple other good picks, and now you get like a stud, like a good tight end option that would probably go like be a best ball or like DFS value for a chance to win $1 million. Like, okay, cool.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, if some that is an interesting way to think about it, and I find myself on those thoughts every once in a while, and then I don't remember enough. You just become a robot sometimes in some of these drafts that I don't put them into action. But I totally agree. It's like, I mean, the Chiefs might be better than last year. I think they probably are better than last year. Like you said, who's to say that week, that championship round of Best Ball Mania 2 matters to the Chiefs? In which case, yeah, I always like to put things in DFS terms because it helps me understand like what's valuable and what isn't, what's a good play, what's a good fade, whatever. And like, I'm envisioning Noah Gray as the absolute stone chalk. And like, he is in everybody's cash game lineup, and, he's 70% owned in tournaments because he's 3K, and Travis Kelce is sitting out in that week. And you're like, do you want that guy on your team that has a chance to win $1 million? Like, yes, I do. Yes, I would really like to have that on my team in the 18th or 20th round.
Yeah, it's not like the Chiefs never used their tight end too. Every time they need a big third down, they run the same play. They run the bootleg right. The backup tight end sneaks out to the left side towards the sideline. Mahomes pivots. He throws it back. The guy's wide open every time. He gets 7 yards. He walks out of bounds. He goes and sits back on the bench. I'm not saying that like 2 fantasy points is good, but maybe like he gets a touchdown on that play and it's 8 points. And suddenly, someone's gotten hurt, and those 8 points can make or break a season. And for the 18th round, like 8 points is good. Like 18th round guys suck. I think we learned that last year. Like 18th round players suck. And so like stop taking Joe Schmo. Like I was probably guilty as this last year. Like who was that that Redskins slot guy who everyone thought was going to play? Like Steven Sims, I think.
Steven Sims, yes, Steven Sims.
And it's just like I took so much of him, and then it's like by week 2, you're like, this guy's a scrub. He's never going to play. And for Trent Taylor for me was like I was really high on Trent Taylor, and it was just like he was winning the job, then he got hurt again, and then like the 49ers offense was terrible. And it was like, well, this was stupid. I took a slot guy in the 18th round. I didn't even give myself like ceiling. What the hell were you doing? Yep. So lesson learned.
like taking Adam Humphries this year, right? It's like, okay, I get what you're doing. Like, okay, he's going to play the slot. I'm bullish on this offense, but like, let's take a step back for a second.
Josh Reynolds.
Think about the goal of what we're trying to do here. I'm trying to finish first out of almost 200,000 people. And on what planet does Adam Humphries ever help me get there? You know what I mean? Like you mentioned the just like random little spike that you get from a super cheap player. Like it's not the same thing. And I try not to, promote this kind of thinking too much. But if you do look back at the team that Justin Herzig won last year, Kendrick Bourne was like basically a stone zero for him all year. And he caught a Hail Mary to advance him to the championship, I think. Whatever. So 10 points, right? Or, it was like 10 points or something like that Kendrick Bourne scored as his last round pick. And like that literally ended up winning him $200,000 because he needed that. Why can't Noah Gray catch 3 balls for 20 yards and a touchdown? And you just so happen to need him, in that week to give you that little bit of added boost. So I think I'm happy that we talked about a lot of these different things because it's funny. Jack makes such a good point. Like we were promised the siege hot takes, and
you should have last week. If you had me last week, you would have been good to go. week late.
Yeah, that is true. I also was giving out tons of horrible takes a week ago before the Rams, made moves and before ETN got hurt and all sorts of fun stuff.
The funny thing is, like, I was in July, like I did a list of Rams candidates, and Sony Michel was like second on the list, like right behind the dream candidate of Melvin Gordon, right? Like behind it was Sony Michel. And then I still kept drafting Darrell Williams because it's like, if Sony Michel's there, I'm like, whatever, he's going to be the Malcolm Brown. And now it looks like, oh no, like, looks like they might have been higher on him than even I was. And I was just like, oh, this isn't great. But I was like, thank God he was like an 11th round pick in Best Ball Mania, so I didn't like add any shares there for game theory. So yeah, it's definitely one of those things where the game theory definitely saved me from a couple of mistakes so far. Well, not mistakes, but just like injury luck. Yeah,
same. I totally agree. All right, this was awesome. You did the opposite of what everybody expected and provided us with actually really highly actionable, really, really, really good stuff. You even got me thinking, and even I was like, oh no, let's take Tannehill, and then we ended up on a better team than we would have if I was just being a robot and being and being lazy. I think this was awesome. We're running a little bit over time, so I do want to ask you, like, what do you got going on? What's coming? What are you guys doing over the? Are you still working MLB? What are you doing for NFL leading up to this?
Yeah, so still doing MLB over Elite Fantasy. Best ball basically is my life. It's funny, like I don't do a ton of best ball content, which is really nice. It's kind of like my own baby, but I'm sure I'm going to put up my rankings on the site here momentarily. I think as soon as I finally, the problem is I finish the rankings and then like 4 different pieces of NFL news change. And I'm like, well, now I got to test these again, right? I got to go after some puppies and I got to test them and make it work. I've been trying this for a month and a half to get the rankings up. We'll see if it ever happens. But yeah, Siege Mentality Podcast, Apple, you can definitely download there. My mom was a guest last time. That was fun. So if you haven't listened to that one, if that one's gotten rave reviews, probably not because I was on it. So I checked that out. But yeah, you can get that Apple and anywhere you get your podcast. That's probably the best thing to promote.
Awesome. Yeah. So this was great. If you are Dustin, thank you for subscribing, and I like your picture of a dog. I think you'll fit in well around here. That's it for today. Tomorrow, I'm going to be doing at this exact same time a draft on Drafters, another one of the platforms that exists out here for best ball. We're working with them, and I'm pretty excited about some of the drafts and the different things that we can do on kind of another site, right? Giving us another option besides just Underdog, DraftKings, FFPC.
Thank you for reminding me to check my Drafter slow drafts.
Yeah. See, there you go. See, this was just overall helpful for everybody today. This is a good use of an hour. The only other thing I will promote is I'm going to be putting it out there here in just a little bit. Tomorrow at 5 p.m. I promise the time is actually going to be right on the thumbnail for this one. Tomorrow at 5 p.m. I'm going to be joined by Evan Silva of Establish the Run, and we're doing a big dog draft on Underdog. A big dog with the big dog, I guess, is what it's going to be. So tomorrow you'll get to see my ugly mug twice. But until then, I will catch you guys tomorrow. Shout out to Siege. Shout out to Dustin and his dog. And I will talk to you guys